Hi everyone, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can check them out at filmmakeru.com. Every week, we have a discussion with a post-professional or a professional from set to discuss their techniques and ideas. Today, I'm being joined by Director of Photography, Dan Kneece. Hi Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I
It's
guess
great to be
my
here.
thank you for joining us. It's a great honor. You started in doing Steadicam. What made you decide to switch into cinematography now, or director of photography?
Well, I did Steadicam for 28 years for um, a lot of different people. I was one of the top Steadicam operators in the business,
Mhm.
and my main directors were well, I did it for Joel Schumacher, Wes Craven. I did two movies for Quentin Tarantino, Jackie Brown, and the Death Proof segment of Grindhouse. But my main
Mhm.
director is a guy named David Lynch, and I did
Mhm.
met him on a movie called Blue Velvet, and we've been working together ever since, basically.
Mhm. Well, why did you decide to make the jump back into cinematography?
Well, I'd done it for 28 years. I'd done Steadicam for 28 years, and I said, that's long enough. And and um, and I'd done most of what you could do with Steadicam at the time, and I wanted to try something new, and I wanted to have a little more control over what was going on the movies that I worked on. And plus, I just enjoyed the being a director of photography.
So when you're working on a project, how do you get on the same page as the director and make sure that you're giving them what they want, but also being your own creative artist?
Well, everything you need to know is in the script. You read the
Mhm.
script. I would read the script a couple of times. I read so many scripts now that it's like watching the movie while I read the script. I see images go through my head as I read the script, and then after I've done that once or twice, then I get together with the director, and we talk about it. I said, "This is the movie that I saw when I read your script. Movie did you see? Is it? Are we on this similar uh, uh, path here?" And the one thing that has to happen is everybody has to be making the same movie, and it has to be the director's movie. It's not your movie. You're not there to make your movie, and the director's there to make his movie or her movie. Um, the director is the person that has to be satisfied with the movie that results. And so everything that you do, your entire goal, your entire drive is to make that movie, to realize that movie.
Mhm. Well, and you mentioned that you'd worked on with some amazing directors in the past. So, what did you learn from them that you use now as a director of photography?
Well, you learn from everybody that you work with,
Mhm.
and not just directors, but every single person, even the craft service person. So everybody's important on the set, but the directors, each one has their own style and their own way of doing it, and but there are similarities. And you have to realize that your job is to create is to establish and create their vision, to
Mhm.
give them what they have in their mind's eye, uh, to make the movie. Now that said, sometimes that's not easy to get out because people have a way of telling you one thing and actually meaning something else. And
Mhm.
so you have to be a technician, but you also have to be a bit of an amateur psychiatrist or psychologist to actually pull out what people are telling you. Now, on the directors that I mentioned, this is not that difficult because they have a really good idea of what they want and what they want to do. But some people, um, I'll tell you the exact opposite almost. It's just really a tricky proposition. So, but the other thing is sometimes a director will ask you to do something that you don't really understand at that point in time, but you do your best to do it anyway. And then when you see the movie, you say, "Oh, that's exactly why they wanted me to do that because it actually fits in this puzzle in this particular way in the movie." And so, one of the biggest things you can have is an open mind and listen very carefully to what people tell you, and then try to decipher that into actually what they're saying and what they want. Because I've had people say, "Well, do this," and then I'll do that. And then they'll say, that's not what I want. That's not what I mean. I say, well, what do you mean? You know, and then we kind of go back and forth until we actually figure out what, because sometimes people don't know how to articulate exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm. What was it that made you want to get into the film industry?
I grew up in a small town in South Carolina of about 2,000 people surrounded by swamps and alligators, 10 miles away from where James Brown was born and about 24 miles away from where a painter named Jasper Johns grew up. It's boring. There's nothing going on. I mean, it's beautiful. The food's good. It'll kill you, the food, but you know, it's good. But if you have a creative mind, you have to use that mind to create your own entertainment. And when I was 13, my mother bought a Super 8 camera, and I kind of started playing with that Super 8 camera and filming everything I could. And I became enamored with it. And the whole concept of what you could do with the camera and how you could tell a story with the camera became sort of paramount with me. And the being able to tell that story, I mean, that's the whole thing about cinematography. It's not just making pretty pictures, but it's using those pictures to convey to somebody else an idea or a story or a thing like that. I mean, Joel Schumacher told me one time, we were doing a movie called Number 23, and he looked at me one day and he said, I'm just an old man trying to tell a story. And that's what it's really about, is how you convey that script through the lens to your audience in a way that they understand and in the best way that you can. So that never gets old.
Mm-hmm. Is there a particular type of story that you like to tell or you like to work on?
As long as it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like the movies that I did with Quentin and with David. They're always interesting movies. Mm-hmm. Joel made interesting movies. Wes Craven was a wonderful man, and I shot the whole opening of Scream with Drew Barrymore, mm-hmm, popping the popcorn. That was me with my Steadicam. These are guys that they have something to say, and it can. I work with a lot of women directors now, you know, and I love that. You know, male or female director, it doesn't matter as long as they have something to say and they have a concept of how they want to say it.
So one of the things whenever I talk to a cinematographer or a colorist that I like to ask them is, where do you go for inspiration? Is there a particular art movement, or is there a particular photographer or other cinematographers? Where do you look for your inspiration?
Well, I know this has been said many times before, but I like to go to the paintings of the old masters a lot of times. You know, I mean, I spent 2 months in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, in London, Paris, Rome, Madrid, Berlin, all over Europe, and I ended up in the Torun in Poland in the Camera Image Film Festival. But I mean, most of the places that I went, I started going to museums, or I went to museums for most of the time and looked at these paintings, and they're magnificent paintings out there, and the way they would use the paint and the light and and sometimes it doesn't make sense because they have light coming from a place where there's no hole or place for the light to come from. But the artist decided, well, it would look really cool if we had like a beam of light come right through this wall and hit somebody in the face, you know. And so these things are really interesting to me. Watching other great films like the black and white work of Gabriel Figueroa from Mexico. He did some amazing black and white work. There are a lot of great cinematographers and a lot of great movies that I love to watch. The issue is in our business is if we're really good at what we do, people never know we're there. Because if people start looking and saying, "Oh, gee, that's a great shot," we've failed because they aren't watching the movie; they're looking at the shots.
That's one of the things that used to drive me nuts in film school. Is the students would always be like, what film stock was that shot on? I was like, that's not the point. Like,
when I was in school, it was like you know, that because I went to the University of South Carolina for most of my educational career, and I spent one summer at USC out here. I went to both USCs, one in South Carolina, one here in Los Angeles. And at the USC here in Los Angeles, they told us you can make a really professional movie with Super 8, or you can make a home movie with Super Panavision 70.
Mhm.
It's not what you use. It's not the size of the wrench, but it's the person behind the wrench.
Yeah. Well, it's like there was a film from Canada called Artanidwat, The Fast Runner. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't
And
seen
that
that
was,
one.
it's all on Betamax,
Oh, yeah.
or Beta SP, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it looks phenomenal. It was shot in snowy tundra, and
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it, but it looks like it was shot on film, and it's just
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Well, they shot Tangerine with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Tangerine they
Yeah.
shot with an iPhone, and you know, I mean, it's not what you shoot it with. It comes back to the script. It comes back to the story, like what we talked about in the beginning. If
Yeah.
you tell a compelling story, you could just about show a dark frame, and people are going to pay attention to it.
Yeah. You could, if not, you could always say it's experimental and try and get
Yeah,
away
well,
with that.
yeah, I've done a few experimental
Um,
films too.
oh yeah. How do you prepare for experimental film then as a cinematographer? Because I
Well,
feel like fiction, it's like, here's the script, here's how we're following it. Whereas experimental,
you
it's
have your gear, you make sure your gear works, and you get ready for anything pretty much. I mean, it's we basically need a camera and a lens, some sort of recording, be it film or electronic, some sort of if they're going to use sound, if it's not going to be a silent movie, some way to record the sound, which may or may not fall on me,
yeah.
depending upon what happens. Usually, a movie of any size, you have a sound person with a mic and a recorder and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
but you just you make sure that all that equipment works, and then you say, "I'm ready."
Yeah, and just thinking of all the experimental films and how tough that would be. Uh,
I mean,
what would
I
you
started out
say?
as an animator, so
Oh
I
yeah.
did a lot of animation in that way, where I'd
Hmm.
record soundtracks before time, and I do what's called Mickey Mouse sync, which means I'd take the soundtrack, I'd record it on magnetic film, I'd divide it up frame by frame till I had pages and pages of numbers, and I would do the visual to those numbers. And Mickey Mouse sync is a dead sync to, like it refers to when Mickey Mouse talks, the words correspond exactly to his mouth moving.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's really talking. So it's a hard, fast sync.
Wow. So how now were you the cinematographer on the animations, or were you an actual like
I was the
animator?
filmmaker.
Wow.
I did everything on the animations because that was the great thing about it, and the bad thing about it is everything fell in your lap.
Hmm.
So either you had nobody else to discuss it with, and you had no you had nobody else to blame if it went wrong. You know, you just did it.
Wow. It's been years since I've been with an animation stand. I'm assuming you were shooting with an old animation stand.
Yeah, Oxberries or Fax animation
Yeah.
stands, one of those two.
Wow.
And I still got an Oxberry in my garage right now.
Oh no way.
Yeah.
You gonna ever break that out and start making
Well,
animations
I'm
again?
trying to decide whether to keep it or not. It's 12 feet tall and it takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, I should. You know, I've got one fellow that wants it, but maybe I'll hang on to it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Make one more film. one,
Yeah,
one more story, right? Just
yeah.
like
One more story. It comes down to stories, and or with experimental films, they can be totally abstract. You even surpass the story, and it's just about the visual image and sounds going into your brain and how your body reacts to that, and how your brain reacts to that. So you can even go that is a story in itself because it has no story.
yeah. Are you so? Do you follow like the local experimental community in LA
I
or
have not, but I
California?
probably should. You know, it's like I've been making movies so long now that it's like uh, people ask me to do things, and I decide, well, is that interesting? Do I want to do it? And if it is, then I do it. But it's like, it's different than when I first got here and nobody knew who I was, and that, in a way, that was kind of fun too, because it was like the struggle. I mean, my college roommate from years ago, we had this saying, "Stay hungry," and stay hungry meant that you were always trying and never gave up and never rested on your laurels, because once you start resting and quit learning, then you die.
Yeah.
And so I'm always trying to learn and fight and move on in a way that is not quite comfortable.
Wow. Is there a scene in your career that you're most proud of, the cinematography work you've done on?
Well, there's two. The one that changed my life was the stair work on Blue Velvet with Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern, going down the stairs and talking after he's been in Dorothy Vallon's apartment and talking about the key, because there's one shot of him going upstairs with the bug sprayer, going to her apartment, and then when he comes out and he's got the key, he runs into Laura Dern on the stairs, and then that was a big thing. And then the opening of Jackie Brown, where Jackie is going through the airport and goes up to the ticket counter. And that was quite an undertaking because we had to do it in several parts. The first part is on a people mover, and she's going in front of the wall, and the opening credits are going. Then we did that on 2 dollies locked together with speed rail, and the people mover was broken, and so we had to put her on the front board of a Pee-wee dolly, and I was on a Fisher 10, and with the movie cam compact on the gearhead, and we pushed along so they were exactly synced up, going the right speed so they could lay the titles over it. And then she comes off the front of the dolly. I'm on a Steadicam with a 50 on a grip wheelchair, and they're pushing me along as she runs down through the airport, holding on with one hand and shooting with one hand. And we had banks of 8-foot kinos that would move along when she was in front of a wall. When she was in front of a window, we had to stop the kinos so we didn't see the reflection in the wall, and then have another set that picked it up and rolled. These were all powered off of, were they batteries or plugged in? It's been a little while. But we had several banks of kinos that rolled on carts. So we exposed her properly when she was in front of the wall, and then when she was in front of the window. And then at the end of that run, I had to leap off at speed without shaking the camera, having her like in a head and shoulders close-up, whip around at about 180 degrees until she got to the ticket counter, leave her, pick up another ticket agent. She had a line, and then come back and find Pam Grier again. And this is all, with a 50 millimeter lens or so. I mean, it was very difficult. And the first time we came around the corner, the EPK guy was standing there on a big orange ladder with his Betacam, filming us right in the middle of the movie. And we do the take, and I walk over to him, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, he said I could be here." And he pointed to one of the PAs, and the PA told him he could be right there in the shot. And so we had to get rid of the ladder, and the EPK guy had to go away. And I think we did that opening about 6 times.
Wow. How do you even prepare for something like that? Like, that's such an undertaking.
You just grab it and growl. You do it. The take that they used was not the best take. There's a couple of horizon rolls in it. But the reason they used it is there was a plane on the taxiway outside that was moving at the exact same speed that Pam Grier was on the inside. And so the whole time we have an airplane in the background that every time we hit a window, the airplane's there rolling. So you couldn't do that again in a million years. It just was luck that we had the airplane there. And I mean, another shot that was really well known is that Drew Barrymore popping the popcorn in the beginning of Scream. And that's another one that really went well. And I was kind of turned loose and just said, she's going to pop this popcorn and talk on the phone. And so where I placed the camera was kind of up to me, and Wes trusted me. I'd done People Under the Stairs with him before, and we got along really well. He's a lovely man, a great director. So I mean, in most people in their careers, they might get to work with one really good director. I've had a minimum 4 of the greatest directors we've ever had. And I don't want to undersell anybody else I've worked with, which, I work with some really talented, wonderful people. But those are 4 really great experiences or great relationships that have worked out well.
Well, and it's always like, you meet a lot of talented people, and there is a bit of luck in this industry. Like there's just like
Absolutely.
it just happened that so and so saw it and it clicked,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. In something like because with your work, there's a lot of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a dance, like when you're talking about the Drew Barrymore
Mm-hmm.
scene. So how do you work with actors then in that situation? Or how do you?
Actors are
Sorry.
they're very interesting creatures. You know, I look at an actor like a thoroughbred horse getting ready to run the Preakness or the Kentucky Derby or something. They're in that gate and they're in there and they're ready to go and they're ready to run and they're ready to go and they open that gate and bam, they're out and they go. And the way that I usually approach them is I don't want to inhibit what they do, and I don't really want to ask them to do anything for me unless there's no other option, because I want them to feel free to run and to give their best performance. Because I mean, being an actor is a lot like taking somebody, stripping their skin off, pouring salt all over them, and then say, okay, do something, because they're bearing themselves so completely in front of you, and they have to trust you implicitly, so they give their best performance. You really, if the script is the reason you're there, the actor is the realization of the script,
Mm-hmm.
and your job is to capture their best moments. And they may only do it in one take. You know, they may have competent takes before and after that, but they only have maybe one that really has the magic, and you don't want to miss that, because your job, your purpose with the actor, whereas your purpose with the director is to capture the script in the way that they want it to be, to make their movie. Your relationship with the actor is to capture their performance in a way that they can rely on, and in a way that shows them in their very best. So
You must have
you have a
had.
lot of
Sorry.
responsibility. No, you have a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility with with when working with the actor, and so everything that you do at that moment that they're performing is for them.
Yeah. But you must have had the opportunity to see some amazing performances, even some that might not end up, like you said, there's a ladder in the background, so that take's not going
Yeah.
to be used. Is there a performance that you wish could have made it to screen, but something like that, like a ladder's been in the
Well, I mean,
background?
I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing actors. Like in Jackie Brown, I photographed Robert De Niro and Sam Jackson and
Mm-hmm.
Pam Grier and Robert Forrester in in that movie. There's a shot where we find Sam Jackson at the Sam's Hofbrau down here on the strip joint, and he's on a payphone, and we pick up his conversation on a payphone, and we lead him through and pan him around the joint. You see all the girls on the poles bouncing around and doing their thing, and then he sits down at a bar, but that shot never made it in the movie or in the deleted scenes or anything, and it's somewhere on a roll of film. That was a really great shot. Um, Another movie with the Maiden Heist, I think it's called, is it called The Maiden Heist now? I think it is. It had a different, or The Lonely Maiden. It had a different title when we shot it. But there's a scene that, this is almost like deleted scene because nobody's seen the movie, but it was Christopher Walken and Marcia Gay Harden having a fight in the kitchen, because he went into her piggy bank where she was saving money to go to Florida and used it to buy to have a painting fake that he was
Mm-hmm.
in love with at the museum he worked at. And she starts giving him the business and pushes him all the way across the frame until he's over by where the sink area would be. And I could have panned and made a more pleasing frame, but I let her push him all the way to where she's got him up against the frame, and he's got nowhere to go. And there's all this open area on the right side of the frame, and he's on the left side like this, and she's just giving him the business. And it's a very powerful moment from two great actors. And it what can you do as a cinematographer to make these moments better, and just other than just be a capture device?
Mm-hmm.
And being on the camera in a movie or a moment like this is like having a wonderful having a great seat at a wonderful play every day of your life
Mm-hmm.
that you go to work. You're there. It's
Well,
like they're
that's what I was
performing
saying.
just for
Yeah.
you. You know.
Yeah. You and the boom op.
Well, yeah, but the boom op, hopefully, if you're good, he doesn't come into the picture.
Yeah. Now, I have one last question that I like to ask everyone I interview. Um, so we've been in this pandemic for over a year now, and some certain areas of the world, people are still locked down and stuck at home. So during that time, a lot of people have sort of discovered streaming or overwatched, I guess you could say, a lot of stuff on streaming. Is there a show or a movie you discovered in the last year that people should check out?
Oh my goodness, there's a lot. There's one called out of France. The favorite that I've had is on Amazon Prime. Not meaning to
Mm-hmm.
plug a certain service because my favorite service during the pandemic has been Criterion, I think, because it has so many classics and
Oh,
just
it's
beautiful
phenomenal.
transfers. But on Amazon Prime, there's a French series called Spiral. There's eight
Yes.
seasons
Yeah.
of it, and it's called, I think in French, Entourage or something like that. But it's called, they call it Spiral on Amazon Prime, and it's just a cop drama. It's like one of our cop dramas, except it's set in Paris, and it's a lot better than what we do, and it's all in French with subtitles, and
Mm-hmm.
it's got a really great story that goes on for 8 seasons, and it's enthralling. After you watch the first few episodes, you're hooked, and you just watch the whole thing. And I mean, I'm a movie guy. I'm not really a TV guy most of the time, but this really, I'd sit down and watch. The first 6 seasons are free, and then you have to do a free trial or pay for the
Mm-hmm.
last 2 seasons. But it's well done. It's well directed. The acting is top notch, and I really enjoy it. So that would be something story wise that I think people would enjoy.
Wow.
And let's see, what movies have I seen? I also watched a show called Mindhunter, which was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The photography is beautiful on Mindhunter.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to give there's one called The End of the Effing World.
Yeah.
That's sort of a teenage drama. This was pretty good. I forget what streamer that was on. But
I think that
Spiral
one's
is the
Netflix.
best one I've seen.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview.
Sure, you're welcome. I'm hoping it was nice and interesting. And
I found it fascinating. Talk to you later.
okay.